to the Neo News Today podcast. My name is Dean, and today I'm going to be talking to Sergio Flores, who won first place in the recent Neo Microsoft dApp competition with Nacho Men, which is a turn-based wrestling game where players can collect, train, and battle their wrestlers against other players. Sergio was also a competition winner in the first City of Zion dApp comp with Phantasma, which is described as a next-generation decentralized content distribution system. Now, Sergio has continued to develop Fantasma, put together a team, and is gearing up to launch a token sale, its own blockchain, and so much more. So he's going to tell us all about that also. Wherever you're listening to us, be it iTunes, Google Play, or YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, and we always appreciate a share if you find our content interesting. All right, let's move on to the interview. On, I have Sergio Flores, an extremely talented City of Zion developer who was a winner of the first City of Zion dApp competition with Phantasma Protocol, and he also won the first prize in the recent Neo Microsoft development competition with Nacho Men. Sergio, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you to invite me.
Not a problem. So as I mentioned, you're obviously a very gifted engineer, demonstrated by the fact you've won these competitions, and we're going to talk about both those projects. But first, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to start working on the Neo platform?
Sure. Well, I've been working as a programmer for almost 2 decades. Well, I started first because I wanted to make video games when I was a child, and I learned programming because of that. And that's actually my main background. I've worked not exactly in games, because in my country there weren't many games companies, but I've been working creating game engines for many years. And from there, I started trying lots of different languages, and I ended working with Unity, a game engine, which uses C#. And later I was introduced to the blockchain. I will say that I first got into the blockchain because my friends say, well, you should start checking these things. It's like crazy. Everyone now wants to do things in the blockchain. And I started reading about it. And then I discovered smart contracts. And I saw that different platforms were doing different smart contracts. And I read about Neo. At the time, it was called Still Shares. And you see that it uses C#. That's where I started getting interest, because it was the language that I was been working for many years, and I started reading into it. But in the beginning, most of the documentation was still in Chinese. So I found some tutorials in English. I followed them, but at the time I was a bit lost. So when I finally started getting more into Neo was when I discovered City of Zion. And they go into there. At the time they used Slack. Now they moved into Discord. But there was lots of developers from City of Zion and other guys that interested in Neo, and we started chatting. I asked lots of questions. I started learning, and then we moved to the competition later. I think it was after 1 month or so that I was doing stuff with Neo, City of Zion, and also let's make a competition to starting having more dApps on Neo. And back then I had this idea that I wanted to try, and I started doing it. And when I was doing it, I find, I see that Neo as a smart contract platform has lots of potential, but it's still missing a bit of things like tools for developers. And that time I started a side project that was the Neo debugger. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I showed that to an initial version of it. I showed it on the City of Zion Slack, and lots of guys say, hey, this looks cool. Are you going to finish it? And I say, yeah, of course. I want to use it to myself, and I'm going later to go it to the community so everyone can make use of it. And that's actually how I later got invited to join the City of Zion. I was still trying to finish my project to the competition, but they say, we see that you have talent and you know lots of things about Neo already. Or do you want to join us? And I got in. And after Well, many months I'm still doing lots of things for City of Zion. I still don't know everything about Neo, but in terms of smart contracts, I'm pretty solid already, and I've been trying to learn a bit more about the other core aspects of Neo, like the consensus nodes, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But for that was my trajectory until now, basically.
That's awesome. And I remember because we did features on all those City of Zion dApp comp winners leading up to the second comp, and one of the questions I asked you was what was your experience, developing with Neo? And you said, it was a little bit tricky at first. It was hard to find stuff, but it got easier as time went on. And to go from that to winning the Neo Microsoft dApp competition, I think that just shows, not only your progress, but the progress of the Neo ecosystem, that you're able to go from there to creating something that wins this global competition. I think that's a nice little story there. So let's talk about Nacho Men. So for people who don't know, as I mentioned, Neo held this global development competition with the support of Microsoft that had $490,000 worth of prizes up for grabs in Neo and Gas, I think it was. And the requirement was you had to build a dApp, obviously with Neo, and there were more than 500 signups and 77 entries from all over the world. And lo and behold, Nacho Men won first place. So first of all, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yep. And so for those who have not seen Nacho Men yet, can you explain to the listeners, what that is?
Yeah. So basically, Nacho Man is a game where you have your own wrestler, and you're going to fight against other players' wrestlers in an arena. And when I say fight, it's more like Pokemon games. It's turn-based, so you can choose different moves. The opponent also choose their own moves, and after a while, you can see the results of every turn. And then you can also have train your own wrestlers or sell or buy different wrestlers, like in the marketplace. And that's basically the core of the game. It's a turn-based multiplayer game.
Okay, cool. So to link it to something that people might already be familiar with, if you could think of maybe something like CryptoKitties, but with more functionality because you're able to train, your fighters, you're able to compete in these little fights. I don't know, do they gain experience for beating other opponents? Do you win tokens through that?
Yeah, they do win experience, and tokens too. That tokens are going to use to pay for the training and to pay for buying your wrestlers, because in the end you want to not have just one wrestler, you want to have a team of wrestlers that you send to different battles. And I'm also going to have a feature where you can have two different wrestlers fighting at the same time against two other, like a tag team battle. And CryptoKitties is a good way to compare, because in CryptoKitties you have the kits, and you have lots of unique kits. Here you have wrestlers that you can also have lots of different combinations, but the difference is here you have a complete game where you can actually compete, and you have a gameplay basically. That was something that I think it was missing in CryptoKitties, because you could just collect kits and nothing more.
Yeah. And as far as the quality of the application goes, Fabio Canison, the founder of City of Zion, who was actually one of the judges, I saw he said on Reddit that next time a C# developer wants to learn how to program Neo, he's just going to send them to the Nacho Men GitHub. That's pretty high praise.
Yes, I know that too. What I can say about that is, in terms of smart contract, Nacho Men is actually quite complex, because it's a whole game logic. Excluding the actual graphics, the whole game is done in the smart contract, and it's probably at this time, if not the largest, it's one of the largest smart contracts for Neo. It's pretty large actually, with lots of different details. And I think when Kanizin speak about that, it's because if somebody wants to learn about new smart contracts and they read Nacho Men contract, that right there's lots of different useful things for developers.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So at the Amsterdam conference, you said there were a few more functional and aesthetic updates you wanted to make, and also you didn't really need to raise money for this project because, I guess you got prize money development or whatever it is for development. So instead, you were looking at maybe doing an airdrop to get this up and running so people can use it. How long till that happens, and how long till people can actually start playing Nacho Men?
So about the features, one was the tag battles that I spoke before, and the other is having different items that you can equip on wrestlers. This is mostly for making the battles more complex. So I don't want the battles to be just about luck. I want to have strategy. So the items are going to help with that. Another thing that I wanted to change is I've got lots of complaints that saying, yeah, the game that win the Neo competition is just a pixel art like retro game, and I'm thinking that maybe I need to remake the graphics a bit, so making it maybe a bit more modern look. So I'm still looking about that. Other thing about the airdrop, the problem with airdrops is if I am going to specify the details, lots of people are going to just, either make different fake new accounts and just to get more tokens. That's a bit of a problem. So what I'm thinking, I'm going to do the airdrop like in secret, and after the airdrop is done, I'm going to reveal the details. I think that's better to avoid all different opportunities. That's just to go for the tokens. I don't want that. I want that just the community of Neo gets enough tokens to play the game so everyone can try. That's what's best to do.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea too, personally. All right, let's switch gears to Phantasma. So this was an idea, as you mentioned earlier, you had for the first City of Zion dApp competition, and you were a prize winner there too. And like I said, we did a feature on this after that initial competition. We did a feature on all the winning applications. But I just got through reading your white paper recently, and it seems like the concept has grown considerably since then. Like you're moving towards your token sale now. You're actually developing your own blockchain, which is going to work with Neo via NeoX. So there's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
And looking at the project, I think there's kind of two ways to look at it. Number one is, what Phantasma can do and how it does it, or the technical side of things, let's say. And then number two is like the applications and the use cases that will be enabled by the Phantasma protocol and the platform. So can you start by giving us the basic outline of what Phantasma is, and we'll go over that a little bit, and then afterwards maybe we can discuss the applications, and I'm hoping this will kind of frame it up for the listeners and give them a good understanding of what the project is.
Sure. So basically, the best way to describe Phantasma is the decentralized content sharing platform. When I can start speaking by saying that over the last decade, maybe lots of services like Mega Uploads, Pirate Bay, which still exists but had lots of problems, lots of different services got hit, or not even those kind of services, but you can also speak, for example, for High Cloud that was hacked, and what was a big scandal because lots of photos got leaked. That's the kind of things we want to prevent with Phantasma. Like when you depend on a third-party platform, they actually have access to everything. And if you use the blockchain and give every person that uploads something control using their private key, that's where we want to go. So in the end, like you said, the project has grown a lot. In the end, for the first competition that I won, I started with a decentralized email because I think that was the thing that I could develop faster in time for the competition. That could also demonstrate the thing that it was having an email where the emails are controlled fully by you. One example was LavaBit, a platform of emails that Edward Snowden used before. And because the U.S. government forced them to shut down, because if you have the emails running the blockchain, that could not happen because nobody can shut down the blockchain. And that's why I decided to go with email first as an example.
Okay, cool. So I want to come back to that email thing in a little bit. You in the white paper, you identify as the core concepts of Phantasma boxes, users, messages, and gates. So I'm assuming if someone's going to understand how Phantasma works and how this decentralized file sharing and messaging protocol is going to work, it's going to be crucial to understanding those components. So can you talk a little bit about those for us?
Yeah, boxes. It's mostly just we can call them just inboxes because it's a more popular word. Anyone that is using Fantasma is going to have an inbox that is linked to the new wallet. So if they want to receive contents, the content goes to that inbox. And creating the inbox is going to require tokens. So the first time they use the platform, they're going to create an inbox or multiple if they want to have separate things. Then you get a message that are what users are going to send to each other. The message is something that contains data, not need to be an email, can be a file, can be like an invoice. It's basically what the apps that are going to create it for Fantasma decide to use. And that's the most simple way to define what the components of the system. And taking those components, we can then start imagining different types of apps, like the emails, like digital stores. We can imagine selling different types of content, like if someone wants to publish videos or even games, they could do it in Fantasma. The files will be decentralized on the Phantasma network, and then somebody could go to the shop that they created as a decentralized application, then buy the contents with tokens, and the contents will get distributed. The tokens will be distributed back to the network as a percentage, and a small percentage of it will go to the content creators. That's basically the token model that is going to running the network.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to make some comparisons. I'm just trying to put this again in terms that, people who are already using blockchain stuff might understand.
Yeah.
You said the boxes is essentially like a Neo wallet, right? So the way that someone, in the same way someone might send tokens from themselves to someone else, using Fantasma, you'll be able to send a message or a file from wallet A to wallet B in the same way. And then the gates that you mentioned as one of the concepts, the core concepts, that allow that I guess creates permissions for different people to be able to either read or write or receive. Is that correct?
Yeah. The gate it's like mini small contracts that are going to control what content can go in or go out of an inbox. So with the gate, you can create boxes that anybody can read or anybody can write, or just somebody, only one new wallet can write. You can control it in different kinds of rules. So, for example, if you want to create an email system, you will have a box that only you can read, but anyone can write. That's a very simple example. Okay. For doing shops or other things, you'll create different rules.
Okay, so I think that it's very clear then why email is such a good fit for Fantasma. And I saw that in your white paper, you've got that down as like a Q2 2018 deliverable. So I'm assuming you guys will have a version of email that people will be able to use and test out. And you've mentioned that you also want to make it compatible with existing email systems as well. So there'll be like a relay between SMTP. Is that going to be something that you'll have ready for that prototype, or is that further down the line?
We have someone working on that. What's going to how that's going to work is you need to have some service sitting outside of the chain that is going to connect between those traditional email protocols like MCTP, POP3, and for example, like when someone sends an email to a Fantasma inbox, that email needs to be converted like from the traditional protocol to the Fantasma protocol. And when an email goes outside the blockchain to the real world, also a conversion needs to happen. And for that needs to be done outside the chain with what we call the Fantasma relays. That is like we can also call them nodes. Maybe it's a more common term, but it's something that's going to be running by users that's going to participate in the Fantasma network, and those is what to do the operations outside of the blockchain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So then, the files that people are going to be sending and storing, I guess, on Phantasma, where exactly are they going to exist? So are the files stored on the blockchain, or do we just store like a reference to where that, like a hash to where that file is located somewhere else on the blockchain? And then, someone might pay for X amount of storage. If they stop paying for that storage, where does that file then go? Like how is that all handled?
I had this working into that initial demo with the email. How it works is you can't actually put the files themselves in the blockchain, especially not in Neo, because first it's going to be expensive, and second, you don't want that large amount of data in the blockchain because it's just going to bloat it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what we do is, it's like you said, when you want to store something, you create a hash from the data and just store the hash in the blockchain. It works as a reference. And in our case, that Fantasma relays is where the actual data is going to be stored. We have different modes, like if you want to upload a file, you're going to pay like for time you use it, that the file stays there. If you don't pay, the file data that gets removed. Of course, the hash continues in the blockchain. So later, if you want to re-upload it, you just need to pay the running cost, not the upload cost. But that's it. It's like a distributed file system running on the top of Neo. And actually, Neo does have, at least it was promised in the white paper, something called the Neo file system. That's where I actually got the idea for Fantasma. But at last, I've done lots of investigation about that, and what I can say is still not very advanced. It's mostly in the planning phase. So right now, Fantasma, at least for now, is going to be a substitute for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And I just want to make a note for the listeners. There is a lot of other really interesting stuff about this system in the white paper that I don't have time to go into, including how the Phantasma nodes are going to work, your proof of retrievability, and all those sorts of things. So I recommend that listeners go and check all that out, because there's a lot of great stuff in there. But I want to talk a little bit more about the applications. So you've mentioned in the white paper some of the potential applications are like oracles, digital commerce, which you've mentioned as well in this pod, video streaming, and you've got them in your roadmap too, I'm assuming, for different prototypes. And I guess developers will be able to use Phantasma to build their own as well. But of these applications, which of these use cases would you say that you're most excited about? And as a part B to that, why does Phantasma allow that particular use case to be built in a way that improves upon the current methods of building those sorts of systems at the moment?
Well, how I structure the roadmap for Phantasma is we have 3 different phases, and the use cases that we specified was planned specifically for different phases. Like, for example, TML is the most simple case, and that is going to use a smart contract running on top of Neo. Then the second use case, it's the oracles, where you can have a oracle system running on top of Neo. That's if you have, for example, want to create an decentralized application that takes the prices from all cryptocurrencies. You can have an oracle that is going to push that data to the blockchain and read that on the smart contract. And for that, we are going to have our Phantasma nodes or Phantasma relays. So that's the second phase. And then the third phase, we have the use case of like video streaming or digital stores where that kind of stuff where you can sell videos or you can sell games. And that requires the Phantasma storage. That is, and not only that, but it also requires some modifications in smart contracts that currently it's not possible to do with Neo. Like, we want to have smart contracts that are able to directly access those data on the Phantasma storage. Right now, smart contracts don't have a way to communicate with exterior unless you use oracles. but for a big amount of data, we want to have a very tight integration with the blockchain. That's in the end, our final phase of the roadmap is to split from Neo into our own blockchain, but still remain compatible, like using the NeoX protocol.
Mm-hmm.
So our last phase and final products are going to use that blockchain that has very a modified version of smart contracts that have very tight integration with data. That is something that's currently missing in both Neo and Ethereum, and we want to fill that gap.
Okay, cool. And which of those applications do you think is most likely to be like a killer application? Which one do you think is most likely to revolutionize its particular space or use case?
What I think it's probably more revolutionary is when you can actually have full stores or full websites running on top of Fantasma, mm-hmm. because it's like you don't need servers. Anybody can use our SDK to create their own centralized applications. That's going to probably improve a lot of the new ecosystem.
Okay, great. Cool. So, as I mentioned earlier, you've got a token sale coming up. I think your whitelist is open for registration, if I'm not mistaken. So what can you tell us about that?
Open.
Yeah.
Basically, Neo did come to Lisbon some days ago, and we helped organize the event. It was a big surprise because we are having not many registrations in the event link, but in the end, like a triple number of persons appeared. The room was full. It was lots of new fans right there. And it was during this event that we opened our whitelist and revealed the date for the public sale. That's going to be in the end of May. So anyone that wants to sign up to the whitelist, it's already open. Just need to go to phantasma.io.
Awesome. Sweet. And as far as, more information, the website phantasma.io is a great place to go. But if they want to get involved, learn more about the team, get project updates, do you have a Telegram, a Discord, Twitter? Where else can they go to follow?
We have both a Telegram and a Discord. And if they want to talk about specific details of the project, you can go there and talk directly with me or any other of the developers. Because I know that this project is quite ambitious and there's lots of questions to be asked. So the best way is really to go into Telegram and just ask questions.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, anyone who's listening to this, whether you're listening to it on YouTube, iTunes, or Google Play, we will have links to Phantasma website and social accounts just below. So look out for that and you'll be able to find all the information you need. Sergio, thank you very much for coming on the pod, mate. It's always a pleasure to have talented, experienced developers on here talking about innovative things that they're working on. So I'm very happy to have you. I'm looking forward to seeing where Fantasma goes, as well as Nacho Men. And I look forward to catching up with you sometime at a Neo meetup or something in the future, mate.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure to be here today speaking with you.
All right, thanks, mate.